Hello there to anyone and everyone watching at the moment. I apologize for being a bit later today. Was out and about in the real world. Still decided I want to give a little stream a try today. Thank you for the subscription, Zenderman. Um, Today I was thinking of trying something a little different. We'll see how this goes. I think I managed to get OBS to work with this. Today I was thinking of trying a little bit of Source 2 mapping. Something a little different. I am working on um, finishing up Residential Block, and I am working on the Day of Defeat stuff that was recommended to me. That is happening in the background. Residential Block should hopefully all be updated soon, as I got, I think, the last of the issues I was running into after having a hammer crash on me kind of set things back. But let us hopefully jump into some Source 2. So, this is Source 2. This is specifically the Counter-Strike branch of Source 2. So this is Counter-Strike 2. Um, and this is the, so far, one map that I have out for CS2 called DE Nova. It's a remake of a CSGO map that I had long ago. Um, it's based on one of the Nova Prospect levels, and it is a one bomb, as that's about the only scale for diffuse map that I could fit in here without either making the map kind of too big for Counter-Strike scale, or without severely changing the layout to something that's kind of unrecognizable. Um, and with all of the updates for Counter-Strike that have come out recently, including since I released this before Train came out and before Cache came out, I was thinking maybe we could start updating some of the visuals here and there for this map. And as well give people who may not have seen what Source 2 looks like a bit of a view as to what it looks like. Um, it is very similar to regular Hammer in Source 1, as well as very different in other ways. Um, So you've got the standard overlays, you've got brushes like these guys. They're now just called meshes, but it's the same thing. It's closer to how like something like Maya or 3ds Max or Blender handles their mesh systems. So you can sort of customize each brush very differently and unique depending. Um, with a whole lot of faces, including faces that you'd never be able to make in Source 1. And you can even have like completely different textures on them. So these two, the top and bottom, are the same texture, but this middle one is different. And you'll see the texture pop up down here. Props work the same way, though you can sort of like UE in Unity, you can just kind of pull stuff from a prop selector down here, or you can do the standard like spawn in the info player start and switch it to a prop static, and then select the model that way. It really depends on what you're going for. Let's take a look since we're going to do some cache, sorts of different props. I do know that some of props in CS2 are rendered under more generic folders rather than map specific ones like in CSGO and other things like that. But given that I have some tiled floors, I have wanted to include more grass foliage, so this is perfect. We can do a little bit more of that. And there is a hole in the ceiling, so it makes sense as to why we can get some grass. Unlike... Actually, I think Source 1 works this way. Grass and other foliage can move in Source 2 via their model texture rather than something in the model itself. So it just kind of can naturally move. I can't remember then if prop dynamics are needed. Prop dynamics do still exist. And we can add more in and around some of these tiles. My idea for Nova Prospect in this map is to more or less have it be more overgrown and destroyed than what we even see it in Half-Life 2. So, do that by having some more grass showing up. Oh, and then this way. To those watching, I hope you have had and are having a good day. It's another very good Friday. It's the weekend. And we can even, you know what, we can even put some of the grass in the rubble here. Put another one. Just keep putting happy little grass on here. As I've always said, this will be a trial and error. And we can do a bit of that. That looks a bit better. These are these bits are from cache. I believe they're from some of the outside tiling in certain areas. DE Nova is a Counter-Strike map that I've been working on off and on for a very long time. I think the first version I released for CS:GO was like 2018, 2019, somewhere around there. It's a remake of Nova Prospect. What's this? Yeah, from Nova Prospect. Previously, it was in the CS:GO version of Source One, but now it's in CS2, so it's in Source Two. It's more or less my reinterpretation of the prison in a new engine, and trying to really get to see how the new tools work and how best to use them and how to really make those visuals come to life. Uh, it is out at the moment. There's a version out on my workshop for Counter-Strike 2. It says single site diffuse map. The site is this control room you might recognize from, I believe, D2 Prison 03. It's the one with the showers where you battle the Antline Guardian, or Guard. T-spawn is here, uh, and you drop down in Half-Life 2 from this walkway that's out of bounds in this version of the map. This breaks from the guard, this doorway, and then you come through here, and these sort of broken floor bits here are um, where the antlions come out, and then you make your way through over here. CT spawn is cut between these two, but you go up through here. And I've ported some stuff from After Desk Job and Half-Life Alyx to make this. So the ammo crates from Half-Life 2 got a remake in Aperture Desk Job. As you're going through some of the layers of Aperture Science, some of the turrets and other firing range scenes, you'll see some of these crates in the background. So I've yanked those and put them in here. It's a nice little reference. And like I said, from Half-Life Alyx is I brought some stuff like this combined metal and these posters and a bunch of other stuff like some of this furniture here and the vodka bottles. Fortunately, I couldn't get the liquid shader to work because I don't think it's included with CS2. But that's all right. Um, let's just check this out in all lighting. It's not too bad. In Source 2, it's a lot easier to generate a lighting preview, as it's just part of the all lighting viewpoint. Full bright in Source 2 is also the same as the shaded polygons in Source 1 Hammer. Yes, and I also have this rubble pile that will need some grass as well. There is a version of DE Nova also available on Gary's Mod. I did a port of some of my Counter-Strike maps to Gary's Mod a little bit back. I put them in a pack, so you can play all of them. I have a version of this map, a remake of the apartments from the beginning of Half-Life 2, and then a remake of Lighthouse Point, as well as a. Actually, no, I didn't include the remake of Lighthouse Point because there was some issues with Gary's Mod, but I did include a remake of one of the Ravenholm maps that I did. And do this. Source 2 has a doesn't have quite the same amount of limits and other restrictions that Source 1 does. So that's good. Hello, Jetio. I am Commander Riley SV. We are one and the same. And yes, Dolan Duking. Uh, Sorry if I mispronounced that. There is a 3D skybox. Let me just turn off the skybox texture, and it's already here. Something I also need to touch up upon a little bit when I get the chance, but I do have it. And here is the lighting for it. It can actually be better seen out here. This building is 3D skybox. And yeah, that smokestack is. Also, that smoke and these walls are. And bring that up. And A little bit better. A little bit of grass here and there. Complements the rain effects. A little bit. You know what? Why don't we just have a couple on the floor here? I'm sure. A little bit of grout never hurt some grass. We can also do that. Ah, is that aligned? That's close enough. We can always fix it later if there's an issue. Well, I have been looking. Ah, yes, the vent. I think the grasses are good. Maybe if I. Well, actually, there is this other area here. Yes. Okay, we can do a little grass here. And then I want to work on the vent, as that was something I had found much ago, was that we now have a breakable vent model. Oop, breakable vent model in CS2, which is nice, as there is a vent in this map. Now that won't work at that angle. That's a little bit better. Sometimes going between Source 1 hammer and Source 2 hammer can be a bit tricky, as some of the controls are different. Yes, here we go. One of the many things that I appreciate has come to Hammer 2 is that we now have the ability to resize props. That has allowed for many things to be done in this map and in other small little test maps that I've made before in this and in Half-Life Alyx. I can scooch this over a little bit more. Yeah. Keep it going. That's better. That can hopefully act as another way in. To the point. Um, else is there outside the event? Cache has a lot of new content for the game, and some of that is very applicable to Half-Life 2 and its setting. And given that I have this map out, and I want to try something a little different, figured it'd be nice to try this out. Okay. Not finding exactly uh, anything too interesting here. But like I said, sometimes props in Source 2 are more genericized. So we can go to something that Valve calls a zoo. A zoo is basically a collection of all their new assets for a map that are then placed down into one single convenient place to look at them. So we can actually take a look at everything new that was part of Cache here, all the new assets. And we can start perusing, seeing what might be nice to include. I think some of these are from Half-Life Alyx, which stylistically aligns since I've pulled quite a bit from Half-Life Alyx. I kind of like the look of a phone for some of the guard shacks, some of the guard areas. So far, we only have the one. But it fits just fine, given the age of Nova Prospect, at least the way it appears. Something Soviet era, I think, would be appropriate, and given some of the decrepit nature of Nova Prospect, it not being repaired also works. Can head back here. Yes, some of these new power boxes may also be very nice. So, with Counter-Strike 2 and possibly future titles, depending on how they implement Source 2, there's a new system in place called a smart prop. Smart prop is sort of like a blueprint from Unreal Engine, if you guys know of that. In Source terms, it's essentially a prop that has a bunch of built-in extra models and other things attached to it that can be changed or edited depending on different parameters. So in this case, using this electrical box, there's different color, tint that you can add in, not just singular or even a secondary colors, but you can change some of the, as it says here, some of the text. We can change the size of the box. Thank you, Combine Collaborator. I appreciate Overwatch awarding me more credits. And hello there, Yasin and Yickermania. It is very much like IKEA browsing. It's like a furniture shop. Yeah, basically a nifty sort of prefab um, snake fact snake foolery snake foolery. I am having trouble reading. I apologize. So yeah, there's different whole lots of different options here that can be used. It's very nice little system. I have not created a custom one before, but I do know it is possible to create custom ones. Now I have these Half-Life these Half-Life Alyx electrical boxes. I think I'd rather do the Half-Life Alyx one, but I can still probably find use for some of this. Maybe some of these smaller bits, these breakers. Um, yeah, we can have them out as little bits of debris. Thanks to a lot of different things with Source 2, you can put in honestly what it feels like single player levels of detailing in multiplayer maps. Um, at least from what I can tell, based on the way I've seen Valve optimize a lot of the Counter-Strike 2 content. Uh, really, the only difference is that there's a lot less physics props, but I don't think that's necessarily an optimization thing. I think that's more of a gameplay choice. Actually, these might work very well. Put that here. This over here as part of this utility room. Unfortunately, these prefabs, these smart props, aren't part of Half-Life Alyx's version of Source 2. Um, this is something that was developed for Counter-Strike 2, it seems, or for something else and then imported into Counter-Strike 2. So if you're also working on Half-Life Alyx's version of Source 2, these aren't there. I do believe they have similar tutorial sort of zoo-ish type maps like this that you can find in Alyx. I've run across a couple. Um, so that is there. Might have to come back for those plants as well to up the grass as well. Yeah, I think the best way to look at it is I'm just kind of window shopping for some new props to spruce up this map. As not everything for Half-Life Alyx because it's physics and to keep file sizes lower since all of it would have to be imported into uh, CS2. I've haven't imported everything, but with some of the new stuff, it I think it stylistically aligns. These are the train lockers, and actually they're very close to some of the models that we see in Half-Life 2 for the lockers, so I think I'll stick with these train ones, but definitely think there could be more. play with the doors a bit. That looks neat. We'll have to put some clipping around that. I quite like smooth gameplay levels, so we can do that as well. One thing I've always found is sometimes it's good to do something that I've always found is that when you're kind of on a train of thought, it's good to finish that up since otherwise you're bouncing around ideas a little bit much and then you sort of lose track of what you were doing. Especially when you're doing something like this where you're window shopping. And you're working with multiple different things. And speaking of which, then let's do some of this extra plant work. I do think it's quite nice that there is now 2D card props where you can just basically grab these little simple polygonal props and then put them in maps. Really helps optimize, as well as these more complex plant options. I think train might have had a couple, but it's nice to have some for this as well. So for those just joining, I am working on a Counter-Strike 2 map that I made a bit back. It's a remake of a remake, essentially. A remake of one of the Nova Prospect levels from Half-Life 2, which I did in CSGO, now ported over to Counter-Strike 2 in Source 2. Um, as I sort of like to see what the Half-Life 2 setting would look like in the new engine and the new tech. That looks that looks nice. And we'll grab a different plant. We'll do this one for this debris pile. Really want to show the sort of the agedness of the prison. The prison is old and sort of falling apart, and I kind of want to recreate that vibe for this remake. To really feel like it's been abandoned, and even in the abandoned state, it's now being newly occupied. Um, oh, and for those who might not recognize it, when you're in the antlion guard battle with in the showers here, this hole is where the antlions jump down from the roof. And I've repurposed that as a bit of ruins. And I kind of like that. Previous version of this, I believe I had a vine back here, and I don't know if we have any new vine models. We do have tree new trees, which is interesting. Full life cycle of the poplar, it seems. That's cool. For those who don't know, cache is set in Pripyat, so that's why there's an abandoned Ferris wheel here. Sorted cable, kit components. Interesting. I need to learn my knowledge of how smart props are customized. Does this? Ah, it does extend. That's also one of the other benefits with this new prefab sort of smart prop system is that you can actually expand and move things in different ways. There. Oh, does that? No, no. Gotcha. Ah, I think it conjoins with other things like that. That's kind of cool. Honestly, might just use this itself in something, maybe to work back here. Still, despite always trying to um, keep topical to the thing you're currently working on, sometimes you do get distracted, and I do get distracted quite a bit, and that's okay as long as you can come back and reorient yourself on what you want to do. Let's see, does that touch the ground? Yeah. Oh, interesting. Sometimes you get to learn on the fly how something works. Ah, I see. That's how you do it. And look at that. We'll have to move that down a bit, but that's a-okay. And now it's not going into what I was trying to imply was water pipes. Cool. Actually, if that's the case, then why don't we put this over here? Maybe we'll be able to even connect it via wires. And then what we can do is we can put a player clip on some of this wall so that way it's smooth. Exactly, a Combine collaborator. A lot of the sectors of Nova Prospect are the ones that are important to the Combine themselves, and anything that they make even marginal use of, they are trying to sort of reinforce with their own tech and architecture. And that's sort of the same vibe that I was going with for here. Interesting. All right, guess we can do this. Worst case scenario, just do some normal, old school. Connections and prop merging like this. So we'll need to bring that way down. That's fine. We'll extend this up a bit. Actually, we'll do here. That works. And then we'll just extend this up to meet the wire. Yeah, I like the look of that. This room is one of the ones where the antlion guard, I believe, breaks in. It's a side room to the showers, and I always kind of liked the vibe of it, how it's sort of like a, I guess it's supposed to be a utility room for the showers, so that's what I have done here. Lots of water piping, some dust and debris, and as well as the electrical to work some of the lighting and ventilation. Um, let's go back to our little shopping area here. Um, I need textures as well. So one thing that Source 2 can do now, though I think the CSGO version of Source 1 could do a little bit of this as well, is more than two texture like painting. So before in Half-Life 2, two textures could be like traded via like a painting system on a displacement. But with Source 2, you can now do, I think, up to four, and that includes water too. So water brushes now can have like painted on debris on the surface and stuff like that. And that allows for a lot more visual customization. And a lot of that stuff is something I would like to take advantage of if I can. It's just finding the right textures to use. This might actually be good to use for some of these balconies. Though, yeah, I believe they are concrete in the original game. The top one here, could be metal. Hmm. I'd have to reanalyze what the original textures are for this prison block. Though I do quite like the making it more concrete. Feels more aged as a prison, like something built pre like 1960. Some American prisons like Alcatraz have a very similar system of building stuff out more with like plasters and concretes and stones. But let's see what other options. tile might be useful. The ceiling tile, actually, the ceiling tile will be very nice to use here. Another thing that you can do in Source 2 is you can copy texture names outright and use that to as part of finding and replacing materials, which is nice. So you can essentially just copy a texture name and then paste the texture that you want to replace others with, like that. And now we've got that. And I can show you actually a little bit of what I was talking about with texture painting in this version. So we can make, we'll do a level 3. First, like in Source 1, you have to create subdivisions for the displacement. Then we are going to do, we go to what is called the blend painting tool. So this paints the vertexes. We need to very much bring down some of the strength and the radius of the circle. It's a bit better. We'll do 15 actually. It's a little bit better, yeah. And then we've got the first channel selected, and yeah, there you go. Very similar. However, unlike Source 1, displacements do not affect VViz. So you can technically subdivide and do vertex painting and displacement work like you would in Source 1, but it acts as a solid object. Obviously, that will affect VViz in the sense that it will have to do all those extra calculations, but it doesn't immediately make it something that won't close a map like in Source 1. Okay, with that, let's get the rest of the ceiling paintable. We'll do similar level 3, and there we go. Now we can paint to our heart's content. And we'll paint along the sides of this, implying that some of these tiles broke from water damage. And they will need to be replaced or repaired if, in theory, if the Combine cared for the building. Oh, did not include that, so we can fix that right now, and back to blending. We can do that. I imagine with a vent, you'll also get water dripping back in, so put some water damage there. Actually, since the lights work in here, we'll move the water damage off to the edges, away from the light, and just have it be those damage tiles. As always, trial and error. You sometimes get a grasp of the vibe of the aesthetic that you want to go for while working on it. And that's a-okay. Can, however, have the damage do that. So now the water damage is creeping towards the light a bit. And with this, you can now sort of tell what Nova Prospect used to look like a bit underneath all the decay and age of time passing. Um, while also showing that taking place with the damaged ceiling. Um, yeah, okay. And I had some here, so we can do the same thing to these two ceiling tiles. Which also works with some of the damaged ceiling I had already done with the plaster. That looks good. With a lot of abandoned um, building work like this, it's always a good idea to show a bit of what that building could have looked like beforehand through the debris and destruction, as it helps to sell that time is passing in the environment. And with the tiles now having the ability to be damaged like that as a sort of painted thing, it looks quite nice. Well, nice in the abandoned sort of vibe. I could imagine the premises of Nova Prospect being completely covered in asbestos snake foolery. Um, it definitely vibes with being that old. I believe there is a map combine collaborator on the CS2 workshop that does include some combine v Rebel gameplay. Um, so you can do that. At the very least, I know there's one with the combine. Um, I have been touching and looking, like touching upon and looking at some stuff regarding the Nexus before Retos. Um, can't confirm anything just yet with making a map, as I've got other things to work on. I have the residential block maps that I want to release hopefully this weekend or at the beginning of next week. I had a hammer crash that sort of delayed sort of my work. Had to reconfigure certain things and make sure everything worked again. And then I've got a Day of Defeat map that I'm working on that I shall be putting out at some point too. And hello there, Bimsec, if that's how you pronounce your name. Yes, I am a map maker. I do work on Gmod mostly, though I have dabbled in both CSGO and currently tiny bit of CS2. Uh, this is a Half-Life flavored CS2 map. This is one of the Nova Prospect levels remade in Source 2 using Source 2 props, stuff from both Counter-Strike 2 and from Half-Life Alyx. And a little bit of Aperture Desk Job. These bars are from Aperture Desk Job, and the ammo crates that were remade from Half-Life 2 are also from Aperture Desk Job. I have been looking at sort of some Half-Life 2 stuff in Half-Life Alyx. VNT, I can't promise anything will come from that, but I have examined and looked at stuff related to that. And I'm glad I got your name correct, Bimsec. I am in my 20s as well, but I have been working on Source and Source 2 related stuff for quite a while. Uh, I will say that. Since at least 2013, 2012. Yeah, I think about then. So yeah. Okay. For those who are just joining, I am updating a version of Nova Prospect Map, and by doing that, I am also taking a look at something that Valve calls a zoo. So a zoo is a type of map that contains all of the new content for a released map that Valve has worked on. So this is for the newest version of Cache, the one that they made for CS2. So this is all the new content for Cache placed down. And I'm just taking a look at some of this stuff to see what might be useful, because this was released after I had put out my Counter-Strike 2 version of this map. And there's lots of things that I've been able to grab. You know what? Some extra overlays could help in certain areas. I think actually in the showers here, since some of these appear to be various forms of water stains. And water is the great. It's a good portion of what can decay a building. And since we're going with a very decayed vibe for Nova Prospect, that's what I will be doing. And we'll keep the bottom of the tile work a bit separated from the bottom of this water stain. It's the hammer editors are something that you can definitely fall down a rabbit hole and just kind of start doing all sorts of stuff. Yicker I believe. Apologies about mispronouncing that. You do so if you do want to do Counter Strike 2 editing and then releasing, you do need an RTX compatible or equivalent card. Because I believe I can't remember which component. I think the actual compile requires a certain level of ray trace. It's mostly static ray trace, though I think there is a little bit of dynamic work for Counter Strike 2. Half-Life Alyx does not have that RTX requirement. Source 2, the source engines are very different than both Unity and uh, Unreal BIMSec. Um, Source is predominantly working with something original, well, what they call brushes, and then with Source 2 they call meshes. Essentially, think of it like working with a mesh in Blender or 3ds Max or Maya rather than sort of the ways that Unity and Unreal work with their modeling and texturing systems. So in the Hammer editors, you have to create a lot of the level geometry yourself through the mesh and brush systems. In Source 2, it's called meshes. So, for example, all the walls and the flooring here are made out of them. And that goes for basically everything in the whole map, like the full walls. Smaller detailed items can be created in software outside of Source and then imported in, and those are usually done through the entity system. That entity system is how you create what's called prop statics or prop physics. So these sinks, for example, were created outside of the Source engine and then imported in, and they act as sort of like an extra detailer. The brushes and meshes are textured as well in Source. You create the textures in Source like you would with Unreal or Unity. Um, Using sort of an in-game uh, texture creator. With Source 1, you have to do a lot of that work outside of Hammer and even the engine itself, mostly through like notepads. Though I think other things like that, yeah, can be done outside. Half-Life 2 modding is definitely very different. It's a very different logic. Best way I can describe not only Source 2 but Source 1 as well is it's like a three-layered system. You've got Hammer, the stuff in the files, and then the engine, unlike in Unity or Unreal, where um, kind of everything is more crushed together. Um, for Hammer, a lot of the stuff already Valve essentially gives a lot of stuff pre-existing into Hammer. If you want to make your own, you sort of have to work on the up into the next level, which is outside of Hammer. Um, where in Unity and Unreal, you can work on the texture of an object sort of in the sort of game space or through a couple of extra buttons outside of it. You have to go outside of that to work on it for Source. Um, yeah, the entity system very different. Also, thank you, Combine Collaborator, for the donation. I like the Combine soldiers myself. I like the armor design. Very reminiscent of stormtroopers and clone troopers from Star Wars to me. And I loved those when I was growing up. For the entity system, though, BIMSEC, um, think of the entity system as sort of like a collection. It's sort of like a blueprint in a way. You basically have a certain set of programming, and then you can change the model on that programming to whatever you want, or whatever has been allowed to by Valve through the engine. So, for example, doors in a source project are under something called a prop door rotate. Yeah, prop door rotating. I'll just put an example here. And um, so it has all the programming for a door, and then you can change the model as well. And then the model has certain things attached to it, like damage states, extra models that might be attached related to those damage states. And yeah, and then you can customize it to whatever you want, to different models, different things like that. There's different options like this, and there's all sorts of different props and other entities like that for the entities. So there's one called prop physics, so it has physics applied and it can move and be affected by explosions, or in the case of Half-Life, gravity gloves or gravity gun stuff. Phys gun if you play Gmod. And then prop statics are things that are meant to stay put and have the best possible lighting and other effects on them. Um, Back to the Combine faction, though, Combine Collaborator. If we want to get more specific, I do like the design of the Combine Elite personally. The cycloptic helmet with the red looks really cool on the stark white. And I do appreciate how they get dirty in episode 2. For those who don't know, the Combine soldiers in Half-Life 2 do get dirty textures in episode 2 to reflect how they travel quite a bit of distance. Oh, all right. There's one more thing I would like to do in this session, and I realized that I had one more debris pile here that I can work on. And that's what I shall do. I would like more plants like the previous one. To still work on the decay. And BIMSEC, this is a bit of an example of how sort of the entity system works. So this is a plant. It's going to be a prop static. So it'll stay here. It'll receive the best lighting treatment from the engine. And it won't be affected really by physics. Well, it sort of will be affected by physics. As you can see, it's moving. That's actually a model texture thing rather than a proper physics rendering. You can essentially make the textures move in Source 2. I think it might have been that way in Source 1. I'm not sure how the foliage system worked there. That's the one part I haven't really gotten a full hang of, because it doesn't work in Gmod completely. I think that works a little bit. And then we can do another one down here in the back. Nice. That looks well and properly broken down. Yes, yeah, it's the shader um, that does that BIMSec, that moves um, the leaves around. Cloth simulations on people. Uh, that's actual physics and does require like bone work on the models, and that's not shader, unfortunately. Um, yes, I believe that was the case beforehand. Combine Collaborator. I believe there was an issue with getting the dirty textures to load when the episodes and Half Life 2 were separated. I think they were fixed as part of the 20th anniversary, but I haven't done a deep dive with that completely. Um, yeah, the hierarchy is um, hammer, then the next level up is sort of everything else. It's your texturing, your model work, um, some other scripting. In Source 1, it's all done in the background files. For Source 2, they've created a thing called the Asset Browser that allows you to work in programs that Valve have created to then import into Hammer. And then there's stuff at the engine level, and the engine level is usually what cannot be changed without um, technically violating terms of use for Source. Um, Depending on what you're doing, uh, they have the Source SDK does allow you to do that, but with stuff like Gmod and base Half Life 2, you can't work on that um, stuff, and because it's just changing too much. But with Source SDK 2013 and the other versions, you can change all that stuff and then have it as like a separate executable, and that works in a very same way of like background files and then down to Hammer. So texture work done in the file level, model work file level, texture work for the models is file level, audio work is a bit at the file level. Um, and I know with Unity, the inspector and scene is sort of where you do a mix of the texture work, and that's not the case here, unfortunately. It's definitely a lot to get used to. Um, I would recommend starting with Hammer and just working with what Valve gives first if you're into making Half Life 2 mods, and then working backwards up to doing like textures and then model work and then audio work and stuff like that. And then if you want to do a full mod, then you get into the engine work with like a Source SDK. Um, I know it's been a bit short today. I was out and about, and so that's why everything was pushed back. Hopefully, I will be on time next week. Because I've pushed everything back, that means I do need to head off for now. But I did want to get a stream out to you guys, even if it was a little bit of something different. Uh, you know, variety, spice of life, all that. It was a pleasure talking to you. I want to thank all the advisors, the members, all of you watching. Thank you, Combine Collaborator, again for the donations. I appreciate that. Thank you to the um, those who have subscribed. There are already some connections, BIMSec to Source 1 and 2. There's just it's a bit difficult to do that quickly. But yes. Uh, Thank you for the kind words, everyone. I hope you have a good rest of your day. I hope you all stay cool in the summer heats around the world, and I'll catch you very soon. Take care, everyone.